Have you ever stopped to think about the most complex construction project in the universe? It's not some massive skyscraper or a quantum supercomputer. Nope, the most incredible build is the one happening inside every single one of us. So today, we're going to crack open the blueprints and take a look at the story of our nervous system. So let's just jump right in with the big question. How in the world do you go from a tiny cluster of cells to the very thing that allows for thought, emotion, and consciousness itself? It's an absolutely incredible story, and we're going to follow it step by step. All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with the initial blueprints. Then we'll watch the single most important fold take shape. We'll also see what happens when that construction plan goes a little wrong. After that, we'll trace how a simple tube becomes the towering structures of our brain. And finally, we'll see how this whole project, well, it continues for a lifetime. Okay, so every great build needs a solid plan, a foundation, right? And for our nervous system, that architectural plan is laid down incredibly early. We're talking right at the very beginning. And when I say early, I mean really early. We're talking just the third week. Think about that for a second. At a stage when an embryo is just a few millimeters long, the very first critical steps toward building a brain are already happening. The pace is just staggering. At this point, the embryo is organized into three main layers. You can think of them as the basic building materials for the whole project. You've got the endoderm for the inner organs, the mesoderm for things like muscle and bone, and then there's the one we're interested in, the ectoderm. This outermost layer, that's the raw material for our entire nervous system. So we've got our building material, this flat sheet of cells. But how does that become, well, us? This next step is maybe the most dramatic and most critical moment in the entire construction project. Now, this flat sheet of cells doesn't just decide to change on its own. A structure in that middle layer, the mesoderm, acts kind of like a construction foreman. It sends out a chemical signal, like a work order, that tells a specific patch of the ectoderm, all right, your job just changed. You are now officially on team brain and spinal cord. And that area gets the message and flattens into what we call the neural plate. And here it is. This is our starting point. It's a thickened, flat sheet of specialized cells. The foundation has been poured, and now it's time to build the walls. And this is where the action starts. The outer edges of this plate begin to buckle and lift up. You can almost picture it like the pages of a book that are starting to close. These rising edges are what we call the neural folds. You can see how they create a little groove right down the middle. They are actively reaching towards each other, right across that midline. And here it is, the grand finale of this step. The two folds meet in the middle and they zip shut, fusing together to form a hollow tube. This structure, the neural tube, is literally the prototype for the entire central nervous system. This whole incredible folding process has a name. It's called neurulation. And get this, it's all done by the end of week 4. From a flat sheet to a sealed-up tube in about a week. It's just a marvel of biological engineering, perfected over millions of years. And the speed is absolutely breathtaking. Now, because this process is so incredibly fast and precise, it's also really vulnerable. And understanding what can go wrong really highlights just how critical that first month of development truly is. So if that zipping up process we just saw doesn't complete at the top end, the head end, the consequences are severe. This condition, anencephaly, means the forebrain can't develop properly. It's a very stark reminder of how essential that one simple fold really is. And if the tube fails to zip up correctly at the bottom end, the caudal or tail end, it can result in a condition called spina bifida. This actually has a range of severity, from a very mild form that might go completely unnoticed to more severe forms where parts of the spinal cord or its protective coverings can actually protrude through the back. All right, but assuming everything goes according to plan, that simple little tube is now ready for its next big phase of construction, differentiation. This is where that simple structure starts to become complex, towering structures. Now, check this out. The top of the neural tube begins to balloon out in this really fascinating way. It starts with 3 primary bulges, or vesicles, which then expand and divide into 5. And these 5 sections are the direct precursors to all the major parts of the adult brain, from the huge cerebral hemispheres that handle complex thought, all the way down to the medulla that controls our basic life functions like breathing. So what about the rest of the tube, that long, straight part that didn't balloon out? Well, that develops into the spinal cord, This becomes our central information highway, the main data cable connecting the brain to absolutely everything else. And even this highway is meticulously organized. If you took a cross-section of it, you'd see two main zones. The section in the back, the Alar plate, that gets wired up to process all the incoming sensory info, what you feel, see, and hear. The section in the front, the basal plate, is set up to send out all the motor commands, telling your muscles what to do. It's a beautiful, simple system. Information comes in the back, action goes out the front. And that brings us to our final stage. Because you see, this incredible construction project isn't finished at birth, not even close. In fact, some of the most intricate and detailed work is just getting started, and it's going to continue for the rest of our lives. The brain you're born with is really just the basic framework. Throughout all of childhood, there is an absolute explosion of new connections, or synapses, being formed between brain cells. It's a period of wild hyperconnectivity, where the brain is just wiring itself up at an unbelievable rate, all based on new experiences. But more isn't always better. So the brain begins this lifelong renovation project called synaptic pruning. It's a use-it-or-lose-it system. The connections that you use frequently get stronger, and the ones that are neglected get trimmed away. This is what makes the brain's circuitry so much faster and way more efficient over time. And this all leads us to a final, really powerful idea. The construction never truly stops. Every single day, every experience you have, every new thing you learn is physically reshaping the structure of your brain. So the question isn't just how a brain is built, but with every choice we make, who are we building?